Welcome, dear child, to this quiet evening hour, where the world outside grows soft and still. Tonight, as gentle shadows gather and the stars begin their ancient watch, we invite you to settle into the most comfortable place you know. Let your body sink deeper into softness. Let your breathing find its own peaceful rhythm, slow, natural, effortless, like waves whispering against distant shores. Tonight's story travels from lands where silken tents billow beneath moonlight, where princes ride across endless deserts, and where magic waits patiently to be discovered. It is a tale of three brothers, each seeking something precious, and of how the greatest treasures are found not through competition, but through love. So close your eyes if you wish, or let them rest gently open. Either way, let yourself drift softly into this ancient tale. In a kingdom where date palms swayed like dancers and fountains sang their crystal songs, there lived a sultan whose heart carried both joy and sorrow. His palace rose like a golden dream against blue skies, its towers reaching toward heaven, its gardens perfumed with roses and jasmine that bloomed in colors no painter could quite capture, reds deeper than rubies, whites softer than clouds, yellows warm as candlelight. Each as different as the stars that scattered across the night sky, yet each beloved beyond measure. The eldest prince, Hassan, possessed wisdom that ran deep as ancient wells. His eyes held thoughtfulness, and when he spoke, people leaned forward to catch every carefully chosen word. The second prince, Ali, moved through life with grace and gentleness, his laughter like bells chiming in a distant tower, his kindness touching everyone who crossed his path like warm sunlight. The youngest prince, Ahmed, burned bright with courage and curiosity, always first to explore unknown paths, always ready to face whatever adventures the world offered. These three brothers loved each other with a devotion that warmed the Sultan's heart, like the first light of dawn warming the desert sands. They rode together through valleys carpeted with wildflowers, practiced archery in courtyards where fountains splashed their cooling music, and spent long evenings beneath star-scattered skies, speaking of dreams and distant lands, of mysteries waiting beyond horizons they had never crossed. The Sultan watched his sons with pride that mixed like honey and tears. For all his wealth, rooms filled with treasures from every corner of the earth, stables housing horses swift as wind, gardens where peacocks displayed their jeweled feathers, his heart carried a quiet ache. The Sultana, his beloved wife and the mother of his three sons, had been ill for many seasons. The finest physicians traveled from distant lands, bringing remedies in jade bottles and silver boxes, yet nothing could restore them, rose bloom to her cheeks, or the strength to her gentle limbs. She grew frailer with each passing moon, her voice becoming soft as breath, her movements slow as flower petals drifting downward. The Sultan sat beside her each evening, holding her hand as carefully as one might hold a butterfly, while servants moved quietly through marble halls and fountains sang their eternal songs in gardens below. One autumn evening, when the air carried the first whisper of coolness and the sky glowed amber and rose, the Sultan summoned his three sons to the private chamber where he often sought solitude and peace. Soft carpets covered the floor in patterns of midnight blue and crimson, and through arched windows drifted the scent of jasmine and the distant sound of someone singing an evening prayer, their voice rising and falling like a dove's call. The three princes entered quietly, their young faces shadowed with concern. They had watched their mother's strength fade like stars disappearing into dawn light, and they had seen their father's shoulders bend beneath invisible weight. Now they stood before him, waiting, their hearts beating with both worry and hope. The Sultan's voice, when he finally spoke, carried the texture of sand and sorrow. "My beloved sons," he began, his words slow and measured, "you know your mother's condition grows more grave with each passing day. I have consulted every physician, sought wisdom from every sage, offered prayers at every shrine. Yet nothing avails. He paused, turning to gaze through the window where the first stars had begun their nightly appearance, tiny lights piercing the deepening blue like silver needles through silk. "There is one hope," the Sultan continued, his voice dropping to barely more than a whisper. "An ancient oracle, living in mountains far to the east, has sent word that somewhere in this vast world exists an object of such miraculous power that it can restore even those who stand upon death's very threshold. But this treasure lies hidden, its location known to none." The three princes drew closer, their attention focused entirely on their father's words, their breathing almost silent in the perfumed air. "I am too old to undertake such a quest," the Sultan said, and for the first time, his sons heard their father acknowledge his own mortality, an admission that made their throats tighten with emotion. "But you, my sons, you are young and strong and filled with hope. Therefore, I ask this of you. Travel to the far corners of the earth, search for something, anything, of such miraculous nature that it might save your mother's life." He reached into a carved wooden chest beside his chair and withdrew 3 leather purses, each heavy with gold coins that clinked softly, a sound like small bells. "Take these," he said, placing 1 purse in each prince's hand. "Travel wherever your heart guides you. Search for 3 months, no more, no less. When the next full moon after that time rises above our palace walls, return home, whether you have found treasure or not. Bring whatever you have discovered, and we shall see if any of it holds the power to heal." The eldest prince, Hassan, bowed deeply, his voice solemn as temple bells. "Father, I shall search every bazaar, every market, every trading post from here to the ends of the earth." The second prince, Ali, pressed his hand to his heart. "I shall travel to places where legends whisper and magic still walks openly in daylight." The youngest prince, Ahmed, his eyes bright with determination despite the tears that threatened to fall, said simply, "I shall not return until I have found something worthy of our mother's life." That moon had completed its arc across the star-scattered sky. The 3 princes prepared for their separate journeys. They embraced each other in the palace courtyard, where fountains sang their eternal song and jasmine perfumed the darkness. For a long moment they stood together, foreheads touching, hands clasped, 3 brothers who had never been parted, now about to scatter like seeds on the wind. "Whatever happens," Hassan said quietly, "we remain brothers, bound by love stronger than any magic." "Let no rivalry grow between us," Ali added, his voice gentle as always. "We travel for one purpose only, our mother's life." "And we return together," Ahmed finished, "no matter what we find or fail to find." Then, as the first light of dawn began to paint the eastern sky in shades of pearl and gold, the 3 princes mounted their horses and rode through 3 different gates, each heading toward a different horizon, each carrying hope in his heart and determination in his soul. Prince Hassan, the eldest, turned his horse toward the west, where ancient trade routes wound through mountains and valleys toward lands he had only heard described in travelers' tales. His journey took him through landscapes that changed like scenes in a dream. First, the familiar golden deserts of his homeland, where heat shimmered above the sand in waves, and the only sounds were his horse's hoofbeats and the whisper of wind. Then through rocky passes where eagles circled overhead, their cries echoing off stone cliffs that rose like ancient sentinels on either side. He traveled for days that blurred together, measuring time by the sun's arc across endless sky and the moon's nightly appearance. He passed caravans laden with goods, their camels moving in stately procession, bells chiming with each swaying step. He rested in caravanserais where merchants from distant lands gathered around evening fires, sharing stories in a dozen different tongues, while stars emerged overhead like diamonds scattered across dark velvet. Each city he entered, and he entered many, their walls rising from desert or plain or riverside like man-made mountains. Hassan walked through bazaars that stretched like labyrinths, each turning revealing new wonders. He saw silks that flowed like colored water, spices piled in fragrant pyramids of crimson and gold and deep brown, jewelry that caught lamplight and threw it back in rainbow shards. He examined artifacts that merchants swore held mystical properties, rings that supposedly granted wishes, mirrors that claimed to show the future, lamps that promised to summon jinn from their invisible realm. But Hassan's wisdom ran deep, and he could distinguish between true wonder and clever deception. Most of what he saw was merely beautiful or cunningly made, nothing that carried the genuine pulse of magic, nothing that could restore his dying mother to health and strength. Week followed week, and still he traveled westward, his gold coins dwindling as he purchased necessities, but found no miracle. The moon waxed and waned, measuring time's passage in its eternal cycle, and Hassan began to feel the weight of failure settling on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. In a city so ancient, its founding had been forgotten by all but the stones themselves. Prince Hassan wandered into a bazaar section he had not previously explored. The afternoon sun slanted golden through canvas awnings, and the air smelled of cardamom and cinnamon and something else, something like old parchment and dried flowers and time itself. In a corner where shadows gathered despite the bright day, he found a shop so small and cluttered that it seemed to exist outside the normal flow of the bustling marketplace. Objects covered every surface: old books with leather bindings cracked by centuries, scientific instruments of brass and glass, carved figures in wood and stone, maps showing countries that no longer existed, clocks that ticked away hours at different speeds. Chesterkeeper was ancient beyond measure. His eyes nearly disappeared when he smiled, which he did upon seeing Hassan enter. "Welcome, young prince," he said, his voice surprisingly strong despite his apparent age. "I have been expecting someone like you." Hassan's heartbeat quickened. "How did you know I am a prince?" The old man chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling. "When you have lived as many years as I have, you learn to read nobility in the way someone carries themselves, regardless of how they dress." His eyes, bright and sharp as a hawk's despite being nested in wrinkles, studied Hassan with what seemed like kindness. "And I can see you search for something specific, something urgent, something to do with life and death." Fingered Hassan nodded slowly, his throat suddenly tight. "My mother lies dying. I seek something miraculous that might save her." The shopkeeper nodded, as if this confirmed something he already knew. He turned, moving with surprising sprightliness despite his age, and began rummaging through the accumulated treasures and curiosities of his impossible shop. He moved aside an astrolabe, pushed past a stack of books written in scripts Hassan did not recognize, and finally emerged holding something wrapped in faded silk. "This," the old man said reverently, unwrapping the silk with careful fingers, "is something I have kept safe for many years, waiting for the right person." He revealed a tube, perhaps as long as a man's forearm, made of what appeared to be brass or perhaps gold. It was difficult to tell in the shifting light. Strange symbols covered its surface, markings that seemed to shimmer and rearrange themselves when Hassan tried to focus on them. "A viewing tube?" Hassan asked, puzzled. "Not merely that," the shopkeeper replied, his voice dropping to a reverent whisper. "This is a glass of truth, though calling it glass hardly captures its nature. Look through it, young prince, and you will see anything you wish to see, no matter how distant. Wish to see your home, though 1,000 miles separate you? Look through this. Wish to see a friend, a family member, anyone you hold in your heart? Look, and the glass will show them to you as clearly as if they stood before you." Hassan reached for the tube with hands that trembled slightly. Could this be real? Could he truly, at this very moment, see his mother, his father, his brothers, despite the vast distances between them? "How much?" he asked, already knowing he would pay any price. The old man named a sum, nearly all the gold Hassan carried. For just a moment, the prince hesitated. If he spent almost everything, How would he purchase food for the journey home? How would he pay for lodging, for his horse's feed, for the 100 small necessities of travel? But then he thought of his mother, her frail hand in his, her voice grown soft as breath, and he knew no price was too high if this device was genuine. He emptied his purse onto the counter, and the old shopkeeper counted the coins with fingers that moved with surprising dexterity. "It is enough," the old man said, and handed the tube to Hassan. "Use it with wisdom, young prince, and remember, truth is not always comfortable to behold." Hassan wrapped the tube carefully in his own cloth and tucked it safely in his saddlebag. That evening, in the small room he had rented in a modest inn, he withdrew it with reverent care. His heart hammered in his chest as he raised the tube to his eye and whispered, "Show me my mother." Frieza's End, which had appeared as dark as midnight, suddenly filled with light and image, and there, impossible, miraculous, undeniable, Hassan saw his mother. She lay in her chamber, pale as moonlight, barely moving, while his father sat beside her, holding her hand. The image was so clear, so detailed, that Hassan could see individual strands of his father's graying beard, could see the rise and fall of his mother's labored breathing. Tears spilled down Hassan's cheeks, and he lowered the tube, his whole body trembling. He had found it. He had found something truly miraculous. While Hassan journeyed westward, his brother Ali, the middle prince, had turned his horse toward the south, following ancient roads that led to lands of legend and mystery. Where Hassan sought wisdom in markets and bazaars, Ali's gentle soul drew him toward places of natural beauty and spiritual depth. He traveled through forests where trees grew so tall they seemed to hold up the sky itself, their leaves creating cathedral ceilings of green through which sunlight filtered in golden shafts. He crossed rivers wide as lakes, their waters reflecting clouds that drifted like slow ships across blue infinity. He climbed into mountains where the air grew thin and cold, where monks lived in monasteries clinging to cliffsides like eagle nests, their prayer bells ringing across vast distances, the sound carrying a purity that made Ali's heart ache with something he could not name. In each place, Ali searched for miracles. He visited holy sites where pilgrims traveled to pray for healing. He spoke with wise women who knew the properties of every plant and herb. He listened to storytellers who spoke of ancient artifacts and forgotten magic. But like his brother Hassan, Ali found much beauty and wisdom, yet nothing that carried the true spark of life-saving power. The weeks passed, measured in sunrises and sunsets, in the waxing and waning of the moon. Ali's gold diminished as he traveled, as he purchased simple necessities and made offerings at shrines. He began to fear he would return home empty-handed, bearing only stories and memories rather than the miracle his mother needed. Then, following rumors and whispers, following directions given by a hermit living in a cave carved by wind and time, Ali found himself approaching a valley unlike any he had ever seen. Trees here grew in fantastic shapes, their branches twisted like dancers frozen mid-movement. Flowers bloomed in colors that seemed to exist nowhere else in the world, blues deeper than sky, purples that held traces of silver, yellows that glowed like captured sunlight. The heart of this valley stood a temple so old that moss covered its stones, and vines had woven themselves into living tapestries across its walls. Ali dismounted and approached on foot, leading his horse, his footsteps quiet on the path carpeted with fallen blossoms. The air itself felt different here, thicker somehow, humming with energy that raised the fine hairs on his arms and the back of his neck. A woman emerged from the temple's shadowed entrance. She appeared neither young nor old, her face holding an agelessness that suggested she existed somewhat outside the normal flow of time. She wore robes the color of mist and morning, and her eyes, when they met Ali's, seemed to see not just his surface, but something deeper, his heart, perhaps, or his soul. "Prescribe, about Prince of Distant Lands," she said. her voice like wind through leaves. "You seek healing for one you love." Ali bowed respectfully. "My mother lies dying. I have traveled far, searching for something that might save her." The woman studied him in silence for a long moment, and Ali had the strange sensation of being weighed on some invisible scale, his worthiness being measured by criteria he could not guess. Finally she smiled, a small expression but genuine. "Follow me," she said, turning back into the temple. Inside, the air smelled of incense and age. Shafts of light fell through openings in the ceiling, illuminating dust motes that drifted like tiny stars. The woman led Ali through chambers and corridors, past murals painted in colors that still glowed despite their obvious antiquity, past statuary carved with such skill that the stone figures seemed ready to step from their pedestals and speak. At last, they entered a small room where a single object rested upon a cushion of deep blue velvet. The object appeared to be a fruit, an apple perhaps, or something similar, but it had been crafted from material that seemed to shift between stone and metal and something neither and both. It gleamed in the dim light, its surface perfectly smooth, its color a red so pure and deep that it seemed to hold all the warmth of every sunset that had ever painted the sky. "This," the woman said quietly, "is one of the ancient healing fruits, crafted in ages when magic walked openly in the world, and the barriers between possible and impossible were far thinner than they are now. It holds within it the essence of life itself, concentrated and preserved." Sluggish, Ali reached toward it, then hesitated, his hand stopping inches from its gleaming surface. "What must I do?" "Anyone who eats this fruit, regardless of how grave their illness or how near their death, will be restored to perfect health. Their body will remember its strongest, healthiest form and return to that state." The woman's voice carried absolute certainty, and somehow Ali knew she spoke truth. "What price?" Ali asked, for he knew nothing of such value came without cost. The woman named a sum, nearly all the gold Ali carried, just as the viewing tube had cost Hassan nearly all his gold. Ali did not hesitate. He emptied his purse, counting out the coins with hands that trembled slightly with hope and wonder. The woman wrapped the fruit in silk the color of cream and placed it carefully in Ali's hands. "Guard it well," she instructed. "It is more precious than empires. And remember, it holds only one use. Once consumed, its magic is spent, and it will become nothing more than memory and story." Ali clutched the wrapped fruit to his chest and bowed deeply. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you beyond any words I possess." He left the temple, mounted his horse, and turned toward home, his heart lighter than it had been in months, despite the perilous journey that still lay ahead. He had found it, a miracle, a hope. Thanks. While Hassan traveled west and Ali journeyed south, the youngest prince, Ahmed, had pointed his horse toward the east, toward lands of desert and mountain, of ancient cities and older mysteries. Ahmed's courage and curiosity drove him forward, his youthful energy propelling him across vast distances at speeds his older brothers could not have matched. He slept little, driven by urgency and love, his dreams filled with images of his mother's face, his waking hours consumed with searching. He entered bazaars and marketplaces in cities whose names he had only heard whispered in stories. He climbed to monasteries hidden in mountain passes. He descended into valleys where strange plants grew and stranger people lived, their customs and languages utterly foreign to him, yet their humanity recognizable in their smiles and their kindness to a young traveler far from home. Week after week passed, and the moon completed one cycle and began another. Ahmed's gold coins dwindled as he purchased food and lodging, as he paid guides to lead him through treacherous terrain, as he gave alms to holy men and beggars alike, his generous heart unable to refuse those in need, even as his own resources diminished. He found many wonders in his travels, swords that supposedly never dulled, cloaks that claimed to make their wearers invisible, rings that promised to grant wishes, but his keen eyes, sharpened by youth and clarity, could detect the difference between clever craftsmanship and genuine magic. The sword was merely well-made steel. The cloak was simply dark cloth. The rings were pretty but powerless. Despair began to creep into Ahmed's heart like evening shadows growing long. What if he failed? What if he returned home with nothing but tales and disappointments? What if, while he wandered these distant lands, his mother breathed her last, and his absence meant he could not even say farewell? Then, in a city perched on the edge of a desert so vast it had swallowed entire armies, where sandstorms could rise in minutes and blot out the sun, where heat during the day could kill, but nights brought cold that bit through any clothing, Ahmed found himself in a market unlike any he had yet encountered. This bazaar existed primarily underground, its shops and stalls carved into caverns and grottos, lit by oil lamps that cast dancing shadows on stone walls. The air smelled of spices and lamp oil, and the particular scent of earth and stone. Merchants called out in languages Ahmed did not understand, their voices echoing off rock ceilings, creating a constant murmur like the sound of distant waves. Ahmed wandered deeper into this subterranean marketplace, drawn by instinct more than plan. He passed stalls selling carpets in every color imaginable, their patterns so intricate that following them with the eye created a pleasant dizziness. He passed merchants selling pottery and glasswork, weapons and jewelry, books and maps, and instruments of navigation. In a grotto set back from the main thoroughfare, where fewer customers wandered and the lamplight flickered more dimly, Ahmed found an old merchant sitting cross-legged upon a carpet. Unlike the other merchants who called out enthusiastically to potential buyers, this man sat in silence, simply watching passers-by with eyes that held a knowing glimmer. Before the merchant lay perhaps a dozen carpets, each folded neatly, each beautiful, but not extraordinary, or so they seemed. Ahmed might have passed by entirely, but something made him pause. Some instinct, some whisper in his heart, suggested he should look more closely. "Peace be upon you, young traveler," the old merchant said, his voice quiet, but carrying clearly despite the background noise of the market. "And upon you peace," Ahmed replied, the traditional greeting falling naturally from his lips. "Your carpets are beautiful." "Some more than beautiful," the merchant said, and his eyes twinkled with what might have been mischief, or might have been something more profound. "Tell me, young prince, yes, I know nobility when I see it, even dressed in travel-stained clothes. What brings you so far from home?" Ahmed found himself telling the story, his mother's illness, his father's grief, the quest the three brothers had undertaken. The old merchant listened without interruption, nodding occasionally, his expression growing more serious as the tale unfolded. When Ahmed finished, silence stretched between them for a long moment, broken only by the distant sounds of the market and the soft hiss of lamp flames. "I have something," the merchant finally said, "that might serve your purpose better than anything else you could possibly find." He reached behind him and drew forth a carpet that Ahmed had not previously noticed. It was smaller than most of the others, perhaps large enough for 4 or 5 people to sit upon comfortably. Its weave was exquisite, its colors subtle, deep blues and rich greens, with threads of gold and silver woven throughout in patterns that seemed to shift and change as lamplight played across them. "A beautiful carpet," Ahmed acknowledged. "But how can it save my mother?" The merchant smiled, an expression that transformed his weathered face. "This is no ordinary carpet, young prince. This is a carpet from the old times, from the age of wonders. Sit upon it, speak your destination, and it will carry you there swifter than any horse, faster than any bird. The distance matters not. This city to your homeland? Merely moments. Across oceans? The same. No barrier exists for those who ride this carpet, not distance, not mountains, not seas." Ahmed's breath caught in his throat. A flying carpet. He had heard tales, of course. What child had not heard stories of magical carpets that soared through skies? But those were stories, weren't they? Legends and fables, not reality. You doubt, the merchant observed. Would you like to test it? Without waiting for an answer, the old man unfolded the carpet fully and gestured for Ahmed to sit upon it. Heart pounding with a mixture of skepticism and hope, Ahmed settled onto the carpet's woven surface. It felt warm beneath him, and he could have sworn he felt a slight vibration, like sitting on the back of a living creature whose heart beat slow and steady. Speak a destination, the merchant instructed. Somewhere nearby, so you need not travel far on this first attempt. The roof of this cavern, perhaps. Demolished felt foolish, but he whispered, "Take me to the roof of this cavern." The carpet shuddered, then lifted smoothly into the air. Ahmed's stomach lurched, and he gripped the edges of the carpet with both hands, his eyes widening in astonishment as he rose upward. The merchant grew smaller below him, the stalls and lamps of the underground market falling away. Higher and higher the carpet climbed, moving with perfect steadiness, until Ahmed's head nearly brushed the stone ceiling of the vast underground space. "Down," Ahmed breathed. "Take me back down." The carpet descended as smoothly as it had risen, settling back into its original position beside the old merchant, who smiled broadly at Ahmed's expression of wonder and delight. "It's real," Ahmed whispered. "It's actually real." "More real than most things in this world," the merchant agreed. "Now, young prince, shall we discuss price?" The sum the merchant named was staggering, nearly every coin Ahmed possessed. With any other purchase, Ahmed might have tried to bargain, to negotiate a lower price. But he knew with absolute certainty that this carpet was exactly what he needed. Not just to save his mother, though surely if this carpet was as swift as the merchant claimed, it could carry her to healers, could transport physicians to her side, could accomplish what no other object could. But also, Ahmed realized with growing excitement, this carpet could reunite his family, could bring his brothers home swiftly, could carry them all wherever they needed to go. He emptied his purse, counting out his gold with fingers that trembled slightly. The merchant accepted the payment with solemn dignity, then helped Ahmed fold the carpet into a size small enough to carry. "Guard it well," the old man said, his voice serious now. "Such treasures are rare beyond measure. Use it wisely, and it will serve you faithfully for all your days." Maher clutched the folded carpet to his chest and hurried from the underground bazaar, his heart soaring higher than any carpet could fly. He had done it. Against all odds, in this vast world, he had found genuine magic. The weeks remaining until the appointed meeting time passed swiftly. Each prince made his way homeward, traveling, roads that grew increasingly familiar as they approached the land of their birth. Each carried his treasure carefully, guarding it against thieves and accidents, treating it with reverence born of hope and desperation. The night before the full moon, the appointed time of reunion, the three brothers, through pure chance or perhaps fate's invisible hand, all arrived at the same caravanserai, a resting place for travelers situated one day's journey from their father's palace. The joy of their reunion was profound. They embraced in the courtyard while evening settled around them, and stars began their nightly appearance. 3 months apart had felt like 3 years, and each brother had feared for his siblings' safety, had wondered whether they had succeeded or failed, had hoped they would all return alive and well. They secured a private room in the caravanserai, a simple space with cushions on the floor and windows that looked out over darkening countryside. A servant brought them tea that steamed and bread that was still warm from the oven. When they were alone, secure from eavesdroppers and interruption, they settled in a circle and looked at each other with expressions that mixed excitement and anxiety. "So," Hassan said, his voice gentle, "shall we share what we have found?" The others nodded, and by unspoken agreement, they decided to reveal their treasures in order of age, eldest to youngest. Hassan withdrew the viewing tube from his travel bag and placed it on the cushion between them. In the lamplight, its brass or gold surface gleamed, and the strange symbols carved into it seemed to move, though surely that was just the flickering of flames. I found this in a shop in a city of the far west, Hassan explained. It is called a glass of truth. Through it, you can see anything you wish to see, anyone you wish to see, no matter how distant. He paused, then added quietly, including our mother. Ali's breath caught. Can we see her now? Is she? Let us look, Hassan said, and raised the tube to his eye. Show me our mother, he whispered. After a moment, his face went pale, and his hand trembled. Wordlessly, he passed the tube to Ali, who looked through it and gasped, tears immediately springing to his eyes. Ahmed took it last, and when the vision appeared to him, their mother, even paler than when they had left, barely moving, their father sitting beside her with his head bowed in what could only be grief or prayer, the youngest prince felt his heart crack like glass struck by a stone. She still lives, Hassan said quietly, but barely. We must hurry home at first light. Perhaps not first light, Ali said, and drew out the silk-wrapped healing fruit. He unwrapped it carefully, and even in the simple lamplight of the caravanserai room, the fruit seemed to glow with inner radiance, its surface perfectly smooth, its color deep and rich. What is that? Ahmed breathed. A healing fruit, crafted in ancient times and preserved by those who understand such things. Anyone who eats it, no matter how ill, will be restored to perfect health. Ali's voice carried both hope and wonder. The three brothers stared at the fruit, and for a long moment no one spoke. This was it. This was what they had sought. This was the miracle that would save their mother. But then a troubling thought occurred to all of them simultaneously, though it was Hassan who voiced it first. We are still a full day's journey from home, he said slowly. If mother is as close to death as she appeared through the viewing tube, will she survive another day? The question hung in the air like smoke, heavy and choking, and find out. The three brothers bring them that Asive the mother would be saved before he said so. Again we would be the mist of themselves. The question, have at least in fact it the mother had been seen to the fruit, will she be the mist of them from the fruit? The crowned as mother is bringing in fruit, the closing as she did that their Elias they were be save, they given him as a great black hem for the mother. This question, his gone beating before them, this was an all that from a second. The crowned and get seen that their deceived the mother would be missing the fruit. The fact that he would not doing what his Jun. The question, have agented to the avision of the Kier, but was she made himself in the burn visitly parter. The ground is lotus to fun that we've been hoping. The mother would focused on she said, the social teamly were closing about him, and with the card manage that region telemiddle known. The mother would be difficult me. The question, have engented to the fruit who have not believed at the brone, and a social teamly that he was getting me. The ground is not build in something, and fortunately would then her blecked with track that would not be break. The ground is apart with a same confeared, the mother would she says that it was faced in it all. The ground is worked out waver the bruth of the fruit, the ground is not being riff me. The ground is not being with me, the practically would not be more faced. The ground is not being riv me. The ground is not being riv me, but the ground is not being riv me. The ground is not being placing. The ground is not being riv me, but the ground is not being riv me. 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 The ground is not being riv me, but the ground is not being riv me. We have the healing fruit. Ali pointed out, but his voice carried doubt. If we can reach her in time, a full day's hard riding, Ahmed said. And if we don't reach her in time, the fruit's power will be wasted. It can only heal the living, not restore the dead. Silence again, more profound this time, weighted with fear and helplessness. Then Ahmed smiled, an expression of sudden joy and excitement that transformed his face. Brothers, he said, what if I told you we need not wait until morning? What if I told you we could be home in minutes rather than hours? He drew out the folded carpet and spread it on the floor. In the lamplight, its colors shimmered, blues and greens, gold and silver, patterns that seemed to tell stories in a language the eyes could read, but the mind could not quite translate. "This," Ahmed announced with evident pride, "is a flying carpet. It will carry us anywhere we wish to go, swift as thought, fast as desire." His brothers stared at him, then at the carpet, then back at him. "Truly?" Hassan asked. "I tested it before purchase. It is genuine." Ahmed's grin widened. "So, brothers, shall we go home right now?" The three princes looked at each other, and suddenly all three were grinning, hope blazing in their chests like sunrise after the darkest night. They gathered their belongings quickly, paid the caravanserai keeper for the room they had barely used, and hurried to the stable where their horses rested. Leading their mounts outside, they secured the animals where they could be retrieved later, then returned to the courtyard where Ahmed had spread the carpet on the paving stones. The night around them was quiet, the moon not yet risen, stars scattered across darkness like salt spilled on black cloth. The air smelled of horses and hay and the distant perfume of some night-blooming flower. The three brothers settled onto the carpet, sitting close together, Ahmed in front, Hassan and Ali flanking him. Ahmed's hands rested on the carpet's woven surface, and he could feel that same vibration, that sense of living warmth that he had felt during his test flight. "Hold on," he advised his brothers, then spoke clearly and firmly. "Take us to our father's palace. Take us home." Invoked, then lifted smoothly from the ground. Ahmed heard both his brothers gasp as the earth fell away beneath them, as the caravanserai shrank to the size of a child's toy, as they rose higher and higher into the night sky. Then the carpet leveled out and began to move forward, slowly at first, then faster still. Wind rushed past them, cold and exhilarating, carrying the scent of distance and height. Below, the landscape unrolled like a scroll being opened, fields and forests, villages and rivers, roads that looked like thin ribbons in moonlight that was just beginning to silver the eastern horizon. The speed was incredible, impossible, yet the carpet flew with perfect steadiness. The three princes sat in wonder, watching their homeland pass beneath them, seeing in minutes a journey that would have taken a day on horseback. They saw it, their father's palace, its towers rising against the star-scattered sky, its windows glowing with lamplight like earthbound stars themselves. Ahmed instructed, "To the palace courtyard." The carpet descended, spiraling down through the night air with the grace of a falling leaf, settling at last in the very courtyard where the three brothers had embraced and said farewell 3 months earlier. The fountains still sang their eternal song. The jasmine still perfumed the darkness. But everything felt different now, heavier somehow, weighted with time and absence and the fear of what they might find inside those marble walls. The princes leaped from the carpet, and Ahmed folded it quickly, tucking it under his arm. They ran through the palace halls, their footsteps echoing off marble floors, past startled servants who cried out in surprise and joy at seeing the princes returned. They burst into their mother's chamber, and what they saw there stopped them in their tracks. The sultana lay upon her bed, pale as the silk sheets beneath her, so still that for one terrible moment all three princes thought they had arrived too late. But then they saw the faint rise and fall of her chest, the slight flutter of her eyelids, and knew she still lived, but barely. Princess sat beside her, as he had sat every night since his sons had departed. His head jerked up at their entrance, and his face, worn and aged beyond his years by grief and vigil, transformed with shock and hope and desperate love. "My sons," he whispered, "you've returned." "We have brought what you asked for, father," Ali said, stepping forward with the healing fruit cupped in his hands like a precious bird. "We have brought a miracle." Sultan Stellan at the glowing fruit, then at his sons, then back at his wife's still face. His hands trembled as he reached for the fruit, but Ali shook his head gently. "I will do it," Ali said softly, and knelt beside the bed. With infinite care, Ali raised his mother's head, supporting it with one hand, while with the other he brought the healing fruit to her lips. Her mouth opened slightly, barely enough, and Ali pressed a small piece of the fruit between her pale lips. For a moment, nothing happened. The room held its breath, the three princes, their father, the servants who had gathered at the door, all frozen in a tableau of hope and fear. Then the Sultana swallowed. Once, twice, and color began to return to her cheeks, pink, like the first light of dawn touching a white rose. Her breathing, which had been shallow and labored, deepened and strengthened. Her eyelids fluttered, then opened, revealing eyes that had been dull with illness but now shone with life and awareness. "My sons," she whispered, her voice weak still but unmistakably alive, unmistakably present. "You've come home." All three princes knelt beside her bed, taking her hands, pressing them to their cheeks, tears streaming down their faces unchecked. The Sultan wept openly, his shoulders shaking with the release of 3 months of terror and vigil. As the healing fruit worked its magic through the Sultana's body, she grew stronger by the moment. Color returned fully to her face, strength flowed back into her limbs. She sat up, aided by her sons, and embraced them one by one, holding them tight, breathing in their scent, whispering words of love and gratitude. By dawn, the Sultana was fully restored, looking not just as she had before her illness, but even more vital, even more radiant, as if the healing fruit had not simply cured her sickness, but had restored her to her very prime. She rose from the bed and walked to the window, where the first light of the new day painted the sky in shades of rose and gold. The Sultan stood beside her, his arm around her waist, and for a long moment they simply looked out at the waking world, at the gardens where fountains sang and birds were beginning their morning songs. Then the Sultan turned to his 3 sons, who stood together watching their parents with joy so profound it felt like a physical presence in the room. "My beloved sons," the Sultan said, his voice strong despite the tears still wet on his cheeks. "You have given me back my life. You have saved your mother, and in doing so, have saved my very soul from despair. I am more grateful than any words can express." Kamal that followed, as the Sultana grew stronger, and the palace filled with celebration and thanksgiving, the Sultan called his 3 sons to him. They met in his private chamber, the same room where 3 months earlier he had sent them on their quest. "The time has come," the Sultan said, settling into his chair while his 3 sons stood before him, "to discuss the matter I raised when I sent you forth." The princes glanced at each other uncertainly. In the joy and relief of their mother's healing, they had forgotten, or perhaps chosen not to think about, what their father had said when giving them their quest. The Sultan continued, his voice thoughtful and measured. "I told you that when you returned, whoever brought the most valuable treasure would be named my heir, and would one day rule this kingdom in my place." The room fell silent. The 3 brothers stood very still. "So," the Sultan said, looking at each of his sons in turn, "tell me, which of you brought the most valuable treasure? Which gift saved your mother's life?" The question hung in the air like incense smoke. The 3 princes looked at each other, and in that moment, each understood what his brothers were thinking. Hassan spoke first, his voice careful and respectful. "Father, without my viewing tube, we would not have known how dire Mother's condition was. We would have waited until morning to return and—" He paused, unable to finish the thought. "But," Ali interjected gently, "without the healing fruit I found, knowledge of Mother's condition would have been useless. No matter how quickly we returned, only the fruit could actually heal her." "True," Ahmed added, "but without my flying carpet, we could not have returned swiftly enough. Mother would have died before we could bring the healing fruit to her. The carpet made the healing possible." Silence settled over the room again. The Sultan stroked his beard thoughtfully, looking from one son to another. "An interesting puzzle," he mused. Each treasure was essential. Remove any one of the three, and your mother would have died. The viewing tube showed the urgency. The carpet provided the speed. The fruit accomplished the healing. Which, then, is most valuable? More silence. The princes glanced at each other, and something passed between them. Some understanding, some realization that transformed their expressions from uncertainty to something calmer, something more resolved. "Father," Hassan said slowly, "I do not think this is a question that can be answered." "Or should be answered," Ali added. "Because," Ahmed finished, "the three treasures worked together, just as we three brothers worked together. None of us succeeded alone. None of our treasures was sufficient alone. Only together did we save Mother." The Sultan's serious expression softened, and then he smiled, a smile that grew and grew until it transformed his whole face. "My sons," he said, his voice rich with pride and love, "you have learned the greatest lesson of all. Separately, you are strong. Together, you are unbreakable. Separately, your treasures are wondrous. Together, they worked a miracle." He rose from his chair and embraced each of his sons in turn, holding them close, his hands on their shoulders. "I will not choose between you," he declared. "All three of you will inherit this kingdom equally. You will rule together, as brothers, in harmony and cooperation. For a kingdom ruled by three princes who love each other and work together will be far stronger than one ruled by a single heir chosen through competition." Bondage bowed deeply, their hearts full of relief and joy and gratitude. And so it was. When the Sultan's reign eventually ended, though that was many years hence, years filled with peace and prosperity, the three brothers ruled together, each bringing his own wisdom and strengths, each supporting and complementing the others. The viewing tube allowed them to maintain contact with distant parts of their realm, to see problems and solve them swiftly, to watch over their people with care and attention. The flying carpet allowed them to travel instantly to wherever they were needed, to respond to crises with miraculous speed, to unite distant parts of their kingdom in ways previously impossible. And though the healing fruit's magic was spent, the story of it, and the story of how three brothers worked together to save their mother, became legendary, inspiring cooperation and unity throughout the land. The three princes married, kind, wise women who loved each other as the brothers did, and had children who grew up together more like siblings than cousins. The palace filled with laughter and life. The kingdom prospered. And the three brothers, who had once been sent forth to compete, instead proved that the greatest magic of all is love, and that the strongest power is unity. And now, dear child, as this story finds its ending, so too does this day, this waking time, this moment of awareness. Feel how heavy your body has grown, how comfortable you are in this soft, safe place. Your breathing has slowed, hasn't it? Each breath deeper than the last, each exhale releasing you further into relaxation and peace. The three princes found their treasures, and their mother was healed. All was well. All found its proper place, just as everything in your world too has found its place, and all is well in this moment. Let your eyes close if they haven't already, or if they're open, let them rest gently, not focusing on anything in particular, just receiving the soft darkness around you. Feel your body sinking deeper into the bed beneath you, as if the mattress is adjusting to hold you perfectly, supporting every part of you. Your head rests heavily on the pillow. Your shoulders release their tension, dropping down, down, down. Your arms lie peacefully at your sides, hands open and relaxed, fingers slightly curled. Your breathing continues its slow, natural rhythm. You don't need to think about it. Your body knows exactly what to do. In flows the breath, cool and fresh. Out flows the breath, warm and easy. Each exhale carries away any last bits of tension, any remaining thoughts, any tiny worries. They float away like dandelion seeds on a gentle breeze, drifting up and away, until they disappear entirely. Your chest rises and falls like slow ocean waves on the most peaceful beach imaginable. Your belly softens. Your back releases its hold, spreading wider, supported completely. Imagine now that you're lying on a carpet, soft as clouds, gentle as moonlight. This carpet rocks ever so slightly, the way a leaf might rock on still water, the way a boat might rock in a quiet harbor, back and forth, so gently, so slowly, rocking you deeper and deeper into sleep. The carpet might be blue like midnight sky, or green like forest twilight, or silver like starlight on still water. Whatever color brings you the most peace, imagine that color surrounding you now, soft and safe. All around you, the world has grown quiet. The day's noises have faded to silence. Even if sounds exist somewhere in the distance, they're far, far away, and they don't concern you. They're like sounds in a dream, present but not important, there but not demanding any attention. Your legs have grown so heavy, so relaxed. Your thighs sink into softness. Your knees unlock and ease. Your calves let go completely. Your ankles, your feet, even your toes, all releasing, all resting, all surrendering to this perfect, peaceful tiredness. You're safe here, completely safe, protected and watched over. Nothing requires your attention. Nothing needs your energy. This time is yours, for rest, for sleep, for dreams as gentle as flower petals falling. Perhaps you'll dream of flying carpets soaring through starlit skies. Perhaps you'll dream of healing fruits that glow with their own inner light. Perhaps you'll dream of treasures and magic, of princes and palaces, of stories that wind like rivers through landscapes of wonder. Or perhaps you'll simply drift in peaceful darkness, in quiet that feels like silk, in stillness that holds you like loving arms. Frustration grows slower still. The pause between inhale and exhale stretches longer, more peaceful. Your heartbeat settles into its nighttime rhythm, steady as the stars that wheel overhead, reliable as the moon that watches over all sleeping children. Feel a wave of sleepiness washing over you now, warm as blankets, heavy as honey. It starts at the top of your head, that gentle heaviness, that sweet tiredness. It flows down across your forehead, smoothing away any last tiny wrinkles of thought. It touches your eyelids, making them so heavy, sealed shut with the gentlest of sleepy magic. Discharged of sleep flows down your cheeks, your jaw, your neck. Everywhere it touches, muscles soften, tension dissolves, peace spreads like warmth from a fireplace on a cold night. Down your shoulders it flows, this beautiful tiredness. Down your arms to your fingertips, down your chest, your belly, your back, down your legs, all the way to the tips of your toes. Every part of you now rests in perfect relaxation, perfect peace, perfect readiness for sleep. You might feel as if you're floating now, or sinking, or both at once. As if the boundary between your body and the softness supporting it has blurred, has become uncertain, has almost disappeared. You're like a cloud that has lost its edges, like water that has become one with water, like breath that is merged with air. So comfortable, so peaceful, so perfectly, absolutely ready to slip into sleep. And in this moment, as sleep reaches up to embrace you with gentle arms, as dreams wait in the wings like actors ready to step onto stage, as the night settles its blanket of stars across the world, remember that you are loved. Remember that you are safe. Remember that all is well, has always been well, will always be well. The three princes saved their mother through love and cooperation. The magic treasures worked because the brothers worked together. And you, too, are surrounded by love, protected by care, held in safety. Sleep now, dear child. Sleep deeply and peacefully. Let dreams come softly if they come at all. Let the night hold you in its gentle hands. Let the stars sing their silent lullaby just for you. The story is ended. The quest is complete. The treasures are found. All is well. And you, precious one, you are exactly where you need to be, exactly as you need to be, ready now for the sweetest, deepest, most peaceful sleep. Rest now. Sleep. Dream. Good night.